Good evening. Welcome to W.E.B Speech Platform. I'm William Baxter. Tonight's interpretive reading from my book, W.E.B Files, is entitled The Jabberwocky, Real or Fiction. This was a Toastmasters speech by Bill Baxter, DTM, that's me, and it won a Best Speaker award and was used as a test speech in an evaluation contest. The Jabberwocky, Real or Fiction. Charles Dodgson, who is better known by his pen name, Lewis Carroll, was a man of many talents during the latter part of the 19th century. He was a famous author of children's and adults' fantasy. He was a scholar in the area of mathematics and logic. He wrote books on these subjects as well. He was a genius with anagrams. They are scrambled word puzzles, only when you jumble the words or the letters, they spell another word in the dictionary. And today in Scotland Yard, he is a murder suspect. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. The thing Lewis Carroll was famous for was his writings of Alice in Wonderland and Alice and the Looking Glass. He came up with his main character, Alice, from the fact that he fell in love with a younger woman whose name happened to be Alice. He also invented famous characters of British and worldwide folklore, such as Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the Walrus and the Carpenter, the Cheshire Cat, and of course the Mad Hatter and the March Hare. One of his characters, which was geared more for adult readers, was a prehistoric killer monster, which preyed on harlots and beautiful women. He called this character the Jabberwocky. In the late 1880s, a similar monster in human form was lurking about the streets of London in a section of town called Whitechapel, which was one of London's slums in those days. He abducted harlots and dissected them with the same killing style as that of the Jabberwocky character. A little over 100 years after the Whitechapel murders, a university professor and author by the name of Dr. Richard Wallace was looking over one of Lewis Carroll's writings, and he claimed to have uncovered a passage which was chock full of Lewis Carroll's anagrams. This is a passage he was referring to, and I'll read it to you. This is from Nursery Alice. So she wandered away through the woods, carrying the ugly little thing with her, and a great job it was to keep hold of it. It wiggled about so, but at last she found out that the proper way was to keep a tight hold on its foot and its right ear. When Wallace attempted to decode the passage, this is what he came up with. She wriggled about so, but at last Dodgson and Bain found a way to keep hold of the fat little whore. I got a tight hold of her and slit her throat, left ear to right. It was tough, wet, disgusting, too. So weary of it, they threw up. Signed, Jack the Ripper. And so in 1896, Richard Wallace published his theory that Lewis Carroll was indeed the infamous serial killer, Jack the Ripper. The title of his book is entitled Jack the Ripper, the Light-Hearted Man. This brings to mind the O.J. Simpson case. As you know, DNA evidence doesn't lie. But because of O.J. happening to be a Heisman Trophy winner, a top-notch professional NFL football player, and inductee into football's Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, somehow he was able to beat the rap anyway, despite the overwhelming evidence. Today, he walks the streets free as a bird. That kind of fame whitewash, which often affects our justice system, I have come to call the O.J. Simpson effect. Could it be that this same O.J. Simpson effect derived from the fame of Alice in Wonderland and Alice in the Looking Glass be the very thing that kept the Whitechapel killer from being brought to justice over 100 years ago? And why today this remains to be Scotland Yard's only unsolved case. Was the Jabberwocky more real than fiction? Did Lewis Carroll get so enabled in his fantasies that he began to live them out on the harlots of the streets of Whitechapel, London? Is Richard Wallace's theory true? Was Lewis Carroll really Jack the Ripper? No one can say. There has never been any physical proof which has been uncovered to support Wallace's theory. His theory is based on very circumstantial evidence. Also, there are at least 20 other suspects in the case, and at least 2 of them had confessed directly to the crime, not through the use of word games. No one will ever know for sure whether or not Lewis Carroll was really Jack the Ripper. But Wallace's theory does impose a wake-up call and reminder. No one should ever be above the law, no matter who he is or how famous he is. Should a famous person be indicted for a crime like Michael Jackson was, anything that would perpetuate the O.J. Simpson effect in the case needs to be shelved and taken out of the picture until the truth is uncovered. It is a book the person is written. Take it off the shelf and out of circulation. If it is a movie that the person is starred in, take it out of the theater. If the movie is out on video, take it out of the video store. The O.J. Simpson effect needs to be nipped in the bud right off the bat so that we no longer dishonor the memory of victims by letting the perps wander the streets free as a bird just because of who they are. And that's the end of the speech I wrote many years ago, which has been published in my book, W.E.B Files. And I hope you all enjoyed W.E.B Speech Platform tonight, and I'll be back with other interpretive readings and speeches. And of course, on my other podcasts, I will be back with other folk songs and campfire songs. But in the meantime, I wish everyone to have a great evening and a great weekend. Good night now.